everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
Naruto, the Uchiha Calabash brothers are reshaping the ninja world. Chapter 61 to 67, The Death of Dodai. Kid, in the face of my age, you are the real child. Dodai clutched his left hand, his gaze as gloomy as water, his face pale and looking extremely unsightly. The battle had lasted only a few short minutes, yet 2 of their 4 elite jonin had already fallen, and the remaining 2, himself and I, were not in good condition. And Uchiha Amo hadn't even consumed much chakra. We can't go on like this. Dodai gritted his teeth inwardly, turned his head to exchange a glance with the even paler eye, and then made a gesture. I nodded in instant understanding and hurried over toward Dodai. Emo slightly shifted his gaze and leaped down from the tree branch, his right hand gripping his straight blade while his left hand hung naturally at his side. With the tip of his foot tapping the ground, his straight blade suddenly turned a crimson color, and he raised the blade, rushing rapidly toward Dodai. The game of house ends here, become the firewood of war. Dodai's expression changed in shock, and while retreating, he shouted, "I understood." I shouted back in response, his hands rapidly weaving seals. Snake, hare, dog. Earth release, multiple earth-style wall. I slammed his hands onto the ground, and 4 tall earthen walls instantly rose, firmly protecting him and Dodai inside. And as the earthen walls rose, Dodai also began to act quickly. Lava release, rubber wall. Dodai quickly spat out a large amount of rubber from his mouth. The rubber rapidly climbed onto the surrounding earth-style walls, forming another layer of wall inside the earth-style walls, then continued to spread upward to seal the top, creating a tight defense that isolated the inside from the outside world. Phew, with the defense formed, both of them breathed a sigh of relief. The defensive power of Dodai's lava release combined with the earth-style wall was extremely impressive. Even the 3rd Raikage would find it difficult to break through without using Hell Stab, so they were very confident in it. Alright, now as long as we can stall until the ninjas of the 3rd Division notice the anomaly and return to reinforce us, he will surely die. Dodai took a roll of bandages from his ninja tool pouch, wanting to bandage his fingers. I didn't expect the blood ninja to be this strong. If he takes this opportunity to run, after this battle ends, I must report the situation to Lord A. This guy must be strangled in the cradle. I heard he is only 11, letting him fully grow up would definitely be a major threat to the future of Kumogakure. Ai's face was pale, and his body was still trembling as he spoke. Dodai also nodded with a solemn expression, indeed, and this guy is already someone who cannot be ignored. Shing. Before the words could finish, a strange sound suddenly appeared in the space. This sound was extremely distinct. Dodai's voice stopped, both of them shuddered at the same time. Their expressions changed drastically, and they both turned to look at the source of the sound in disbelief. A blade tip had pierced into the interior of the rubber. The blade was flickering with blood-red electrical light like a cloak of flame, and the surrounding rubber in contact with it was emitting black smoke, rising with a teeth-grinding sound of evaporation and a pungent odor. Quick! Dodai looked horrified and hurriedly turned his head to shout at Ai. However, he had only just uttered a single syllable. Slash. The blade pushed forward another distance, and then the blood-red electrical light instantly extended from the tip of the blade, piercing into the defense on the other side. Following that, the blade slid, and the entire upper half of the defense composed of the earth-style wall and rubber was instantly sliced off and sent flying. Sunlight suddenly poured in, dispelling the darkness in the center area of the multiple earth-style walls, but Dodai and I could not feel any warmth. Their pupils trembled violently, and they felt as cold as if they had fallen into an ice cave, their bodies shivering. Uchiha Amo floated above the broken earth-style walls with the sunlight behind him. He held his straight blade in a reverse grip horizontally in front of him, the tomo in his eyes slowly rotating, his cold gaze landing on the 2 of them. Scarlet release, vermilion fong. Boom. The voice fell accompanied by a thunderous roar. Mo's body flashed past like lightning, suddenly shooting toward the 2 people on the ground like a diagonally slashing blood-red lightning bolt. Slash. Clatter, snap. Mo stood behind the two and slowly sheathed his Futsu no Mitama. A burst of fine blood-red electric arcs appeared on their bodies. The arcs flickered once, and then the lower bodies of Dodai and I instantly disintegrated, leaving only two terrified heads falling onto the ground. Lightning release proficiency plus 7.25%. Earth release proficiency plus 6.71%. Fire release proficiency plus 8.51%. Yang release proficiency plus 5.78%. Glancing at the panel, the scarlet in Mo's eyes gradually faded. Recalling the move just now, he couldn't help but press his lips together slightly. As expected of the fusion of lightning release, fire release, and Yin release, even a simple combination ninjutsu could achieve such power. Thinking this, a bit of anxiety rose in Mo's heart. Such powerful strength must be thoroughly mastered as soon as possible. Step. 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 The battle ended, and Kakashi and the others quickly jumped down from the tree branches, coming to Uchiha Mo's side. Kakashi looked at the devastated ground and those two terrified heads, then turned to look at the indifferent Uchiha Mo, unable to help but sigh. Although it's not the first time I've noticed, Mo. You are truly terrifyingly strong. Compared to this, my title of genius is practically like a joke. Take this one-eyed head, throw it to the front line, and the goal of this battle will be achieved. Uchiha Mo ignored Kakashi's self-deprecating remarks and instead pointed to Dodai's head on the ground, saying this to Kakashi. Kakashi was stunned for a moment. After reacting, he continued to ask, is this person very important in Kumogakure? Uchiha Mo nodded, not explaining too much. Use a sealing scroll to store it, then let's go. As the words fell, Kakashi responded and immediately stepped forward to pack up Dodai's head with a sealing scroll. Obito and the others were a bit apprehensive looking at that pile of minced meat, physiologically not wanting to get too close. This manner of death was truly too tragic. Even though everyone had been ninjas for over a year, they still felt a bit nauseated. On the contrary, Kakashi noticed a point while packing the heads. The size of these pieces of minced meat was exceptionally uniform, and the cross-sections were smooth and flat with a slightly scorched color. How was this done? Kakashi put away the scroll with confusion, walked to Mo's side, and asked in surprise, how many strikes did you make? Because of his father, he had practiced swordsmanship for many years, and his current sword technique was at the level of a jonin, yet he couldn't see at all how Mo had completed this strike. 1 strike. Mo glanced at Kakashi, gave the answer, and turned to walk in the direction they had come from. 1 strike? Kakashi looked at Mo's back, blinked in confusion, and then hurriedly stepped to catch up. How is that possible? If you use a large amount of chakra to burst, you could achieve a similar effect, but the wounds would be completely different. The marks on these two bodies are very regular knife wounds. How is this possible? Kakashi chattered around Mo, asking questions, his expression full of confusion. After nearly a full minute, Mo finally turned his head to look at Kakashi and said expressionlessly, the reason those wounds appeared is because my control over this technique is not yet sufficient, otherwise, there would only be 1 cut. Also, you can shut up now, Kakashi. Chapter 62, Treacherous Winds and Clouds, A Letter from Shursui. Not good. Not good, Lord AI. A Kumogakure ninja wearing white half-body iron armor ran to AI's side in a panic and shouted. AI was standing on a tree branch, watching the battle below. Hearing the voice, he turned his head, frowned, and glanced at him. He asked loudly with some irritation. If you have something to say it quickly. Why are you dawdling and panicking like this? The speed of the flying thunder god was too fast, so AI was almost entirely held in check by Minato on the battlefield, unable to exert much frontal offensive power. After many times, he simply stopped attacking frequently, but the feeling of annoyance in his heart could not dissipate for a long time, causing him to become even more irritable. The Kumogakure ninja ran to AI's side, first swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then gasped for a long time before speaking with difficulty. Tutai. Lord Tutai, he has fallen. As the words fell, the surrounding space suddenly went quiet for a moment, and then AI's furious roar instantly exploded. What did you say? What are you talking about, you bastard? AI grabbed the Kumogakure ninja by the collar and lifted him up like a chick. His face became ferocious with rage, and he stared fiercely into his eyes. Gulp. The messenger Kumogakure ninja swallowed again, then gathered his courage and said intermittently. It's true. The blood ninja, he killed Lord Tutai and sent someone to throw Lord Tutai's head onto the battlefield. Everyone spent a lot of effort to retrieve it, and is now rushing over here. The Kumogakure ninja looked at AI's eyes, trembling all over. For a moment, a surge of scarlet killing intent flashed in AI's eyes, and he even thought he was about to die at the hands of his own leader. But the next moment, AI suddenly calmed down. He put the Kumogakure ninja back down. Feeling his feet land on the solid tree branch again, the Kumogakure ninja let out a sigh of relief as if he had survived a disaster. AI stood silently in place. The air fell into a sudden silence, and no one knew what he was thinking. Big brother. At this moment, Killer Bee called out from his side. He sensed that the atmosphere and AI's mood were not good, so he didn't even use his quirky rap tone. AI raised his head and ordered expressionlessly. Have the army retreat, move the camp back, and temporarily avoid fighting Konoha. Yes. The Kumogakure ninja nodded upon hearing this, then quickly left to pass on the message, leaving only AI and Killer Bee on the tree branch. The air fell into silence once again. Stupid big brother, don't be depressed anymore, let's avenge Tutai and kill the blood ninja brat, yo. After a while, Killer Bee took the initiative to break the silence with his strange tone. After thinking for a moment, AI shook his head with a gloomy face. Minato is watching too closely, we have no way to make a move. As he spoke, AI looked down at the Kumogakure ninjas who were constantly retreating, clenching his fists tightly, his bones creaking from the friction. He then added. But even so, I must avenge Tutai. Konoha must pay a heavy price. The future fourth Raikage, who is the current AI, had a very irritable temper and an exceptionally impatient personality. But even so, he was not stupid, or rather, he was a brute with a bit of brains. Therefore, revenge was inevitable, but he could not simply take meaningless action like this. In this way, it seems that Uchiha Mo's plan was indeed successful. AI had been completely enraged by Tutai's death. He had decided that he must avenge Tutai, and the specific action would likely not be too far off. Another battle ended, and Konoha successfully pushed the camp into the land of hot springs. In this way, the goal of this operation had been fully realized. However, the way the goal was achieved was completely different from what Shikaku had originally planned. On the Konoha side, in the commander's tent, Shikaku was looking at the expressionless boy standing in front of him, feeling a bit of a headache for a moment. Uchiha Mo himself had not left the training range he had planned, but he just happened to lead his people to avoid the outermost Kumogakure ninjas, and just happened to encounter Tutai who was rushing over at the border, and then naturally killed Tutai and several members of the Raikage Guard team. Mo's actions undoubtedly promoted the achievement of Konoha's strategic goals, and in terms of the nature of the act, killing an important enemy combatant and core high-level military figure on the battlefield was definitely worthy of great praise. But, it was precisely because of this that Shikaku felt exceptionally troubled. According to his original plan, the probability of Konoha pushing the front line forward was not low, and while Mo's actions effectively struck the enemy and promoted the achievement of their own strategic goals, he had also completely enraged Kumogakure, and it was even possible that the enemy's morale would increase due to hatred. Tutai, this figure was not unfamiliar to Konoha's high-level officials, and Shikaku naturally knew about him. Rubbing his eyebrows and thinking for a moment, considering that Mo might not know the specific intelligence about Tutai and only judged him as important based on combat power, Shikaku looked up and smiled at the boy. Mo, you did very well. Thanks to you in this battle, we lost fewer comrades. I will truthfully record this merit in the battle report, but, next time if you encounter this kind of relatively powerful enemy, it's better to take them alive. Mo nodded expressionlessly, then spoke indifferently. If there's nothing else, I'm going to train. He didn't care about the so-called merit. Apart from the leaks that could provide proficiency, there was nothing else in Konoha that he needed. The position of Hokage, ninjutsu, forbidden jutsu, it was all the same. Shikaku nodded. Seeing this, Mo turned to leave, but Shikaku seemed to have thought of something and suddenly called out to stop him. Wait. Mo turned his head, his eyes falling calmly on Shikaku. Mo, I misjudged your strength before. With your strength, it's a waste to just cower at the rear of the battlefield. However, leading the team was Hokage-sama's order, so I can't easily make changes. So, in the future battles, just support the battlefield as you see fit. However, pay attention to protecting the safety of those little ones. I trust you know what you're doing. Mo nodded and disappeared from the commander's tent using the body flicker technique. Shikaku looked at the empty tent and let out a long sigh. What a pain. Next, I have to think about how to deal with Kumogakure's retaliation. Those brutes will definitely not let this matter go. I have to prepare for the worst. It might even lead to an all-out war. On the other side, just as Mo returned to his tent, a jet-black crow flapped its wings and landed on his shoulder from the sky. Caw. The crow cawed and lifted its right foot, signaling Mo to look at a bamboo tube tied to its ankle. Mo shifted his gaze and pulled out a roll of white paper from the bamboo tube. A letter from Shursui? This is my final ripple, crying. Chapter 63, The Gift from Kumogakure. You want to come to the front lines? Uchiha Mo finished reading the letter and ignited it with fire release, muttering to himself. The news in Shursui's letter wasn't much, aside from expressing his longing and the recent situation within the clan. The majority of it was a strong desire to come to the front lines and fight alongside Mo. Considering the current shifts in the war, Mo estimated that after the next brutal battle, regardless of the outcome, the battlefield on the Kumogakure side should settle down a bit, making it not a bad idea to let Shursui come and gain some experience. However, the figure of Black Zetsu suddenly flashed through Uchiha Mo's mind. He frowned slightly, pondered for a moment, then took out a pen and paper from his ninja tool pouch and immediately wrote a reply. He stuffed the letter into a bamboo tube, then took a small scroll from his pouch. Mo stared at the small scroll for a while, and finally placed it in the crow's beak, letting it grip it. Take this to Shursui. The crow nodded with great intelligence, then flapped its wings and flew into the sky, quickly disappearing without a trace. Mo watched the crow disappear completely from his view before lowering his head and entering the camp tent. Being targeted by Black Zetsu was both an opportunity and a crisis for Mo, but for Shursui, Mo's closest relative, it was undoubtedly only a huge danger. Returning to the chair made of earth release beside the stone table, Mo sat down, temporarily putting the matter of Black Zetsu aside, and shifted his attention to the illusory panel. Red Calabash Child Fusion Rate, 28.21%, reach 30% to unlock ability, Endless Vitality. Orange Calabash Child Fusion Rate, 39.45%, unlocked abilities, Clairvoyance, Clairaudience. Reach 50% to unlock next stage ability, Heaven's Gaze. Yellow Calabash Child Fusion Rate, 28.21% plus 28.32%, both reach 30% to unlock ability, Invulnerability. Green Calabash Child Fusion Rate, 40.62% plus 51.39%, unlocked abilities, Fierce Fire, Violent Thunder. Once both reach 50% and the second stage abilities of red and orange are unlocked, unlock next ability, Heavenly Fire. Cyan Baby Fusion Rate, 10.85%, reach 20% to unlock ability, Water Control. Blue Baby Fusion Rate, 39.45% plus 25.87%, unlocked ability, Invisibility. Both reach 30% to unlock ability, Traceless. Purple Baby Fusion Rate, 0.21%, reach 50% to unlock ability, Pocket Dimension. In 2 months, most stats had made a leap again. Although no new abilities were unlocked, First Brother ability and Third Brother ability were nearing their second stage. Meanwhile, his lightning release proficiency had broken through the 50% mark with the help of the Kumogakure ninjas. Besides this, his fire release had also improved significantly thanks to his own training and the augmentation of Toroi's lava release Kekkei Genkai, while In release was purely the result of Mo's own cultivation. War really is the fastest way for me to improve. Mo's lips curled slightly, his mood extremely pleasant. The upcoming war would only be more brutal than before. Kumogakure would definitely commit greater forces and more powerful fighters. And all of this would turn into firewood for Mo to burn. 7 days passed, and Kumogakure had not made a move. However, this calm not only failed to make people feel at ease, but instead felt more like the suffocating silence before a storm. Those brutes from the hidden cloud village have been quiet for so long, they must be up to no good. We cannot let our guard down. A large, chubby man wearing iron armor sat in the seat beside Shikaku, eating snacks while speaking with a firm expression. The blond young man with a ponytail shook his head while covering his cheek with his right hand, responding speechlessly, "Great, Choza. You've truly discovered something that everyone already knows." Akimichi Choza turned his head in dissatisfaction. "Inoichi Yamanaka, what do you mean? Do you think I'm stupid?" Nara Shikaku quickly spoke up to interrupt the two. All right, we have serious business to attend to. Stop arguing." As the words fell, Akimichi Choza snorted and turned his head to continue destroying the food in his hands. Nara Shikaku turned his head to look at the jonin sitting around the long table and said in a deep voice, "Everyone understands that Kumogakure must be plotting something during these few days of calm. Although we know nothing about it, what is certain is that we cannot wait passively any longer. Instead of waiting for Kumogakure to be fully prepared and make their move in the next battle, it's better for us to take the initiative and disrupt their plans. I have already sent Minato and the others out in advance." As he spoke, Shikaku distributed the task planning sheets, which he had prepared long ago. However, before he could finish speaking, a chunin with a panicked expression suddenly rushed into the command tent. "Lord Shikaku, the forward reconnaissance squad reports that Kumogakure has started to move. This time, apart from the 2nd Division left to guard the camp lines, the 1st, 3rd, and 4th Divisions have all been deployed." Hearing this, Shikaku's expression sank, but he did not panic. He nodded and then stood up. "Since that's the case, I won't say anything more. Please follow the arrangements on the mission orders. As for the army's formation, it will remain unchanged. As for the camp, I leave it to you, Choza." Akimichi Choza put down the snacks in his hand and nodded solemnly. "Rest assured, Shikaku. With me in the rear, there won't be any problems." It is worth mentioning that Akimichi Choza was also the team leader of the 1st squad, which consisted of Might Guy, Ebisu, and Shiranui Gunma. However, due to the special nature of the Ino Shika Cho, the 1st squad also didn't have many opportunities to gain experience on the battlefield. Shikaku nodded, his gaze heavy as he said, "Then, Inoichi, transmit the message. Have the main army assemble, the great battle is about to begin." After leaving the command tent, Mo glanced at the mission book in his hand. The content was indeed the adjustments Shikaku had made last time. He casually ignited it, then strode towards where his team members were gathering. "Let's go. This battle will be very dangerous. I'll only say this once, if you don't want to die on the battlefield, stay close to me." Mo arrived in front of everyone, looking expressionlessly at the people who were no longer nervous after being baptized by several battles. Yes, everyone responded in unison. Uchiha Mo nodded, turned around, and began to move. At the same time, his clairvoyance and clairaudience abilities were activated simultaneously. Mo's perception instantly crossed several kilometers, arriving within the Kumogakure main army. Mo had previously monitored the AB duo for a while because he wanted to know Kumogakure's movements after Toroi's death. Unfortunately, besides confirming that Kumogakure indeed intended to increase the intensity of the war for revenge, he knew nothing about what specific actions they would take. He couldn't monitor both of them all day, so he only noticed during subsequent observations that Killer Bee had disappeared for a while, about 4 days, but he had no way of knowing what he had gone to do. But now, the war had begun, and Kumogakure could no longer hide. In fact, Mo indeed found the answer very quickly. The position that originally belonged to Toroi in Kumogakure's 3rd division had been replaced by someone else. It was a girl with blonde braids who looked to be about the same age as Mo. Mo withdrew his gaze, his lips curling slowly. What a great gift. Chapter 64, Two Tails Jinchuriki ni Yujito. Ding. Swish. Pft. Uchiha Mo used the Futsuno Matama to sever Kumogakure ninja's blade, and immediately followed up by beheading him. As the head flew into the air, Mo's eyes darted rapidly. While nimbly leaping through the crowd, he kept a constant watch on the distance between himself and the blonde girl. The location of this battle between Konoha and Kumogakure was a plain in the northern part of the Land of Hot Springs, a result of Kumogakure deliberately slowing their marching speed to lure them there. The terrain of the plain caused the area of direct contact between the two sides to increase dramatically, which greatly intensified the war. However, this was not the main reason Kumogakure chose this location. The most important reason was, the plain terrain was better suited for a tailed beast to unleash its power. Fire rat ball. A delicate shout came from somewhere, and a rat-shaped fireball burning with ghostly blue flames shot violently from a corner towards Uchiha Mo's back. Whoosh. However, Uchiha Mo, who had long been prepared, seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. He tilted his body slightly, and the fireball grazed his back, shooting past and landing in an empty space. His straight sword pointed diagonally at the ground. He turned his head slightly and looked at the blonde girl with long braided pigtails. The surrounding Kumogakure ninjas saw this and quickly retreated, clearing an open space. Yujito, the blood ninja is yours. You must avenge Lord Dodai. Feeling the rare goodwill from her companion, Yujito couldn't help but curl her lips, and the index finger of her right hand, hanging by her side, twitched slightly. Immediately after, the fire rat ball that had already flown some distance behind Uchiha Mo seemed to receive some kind of order. It instantly dispersed into a dense cluster of small fireballs, turned rapidly, and blasted towards Mo's back again. Whoosh! 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 Uchiha Mo didn't even look. He leaped into the air, rotating and flipping, while the small fireballs grazed his body, flying past through the gaps under his arms, behind his knees, and past his waist, all landing in empty space. Landing steadily on both feet, Mo turned slightly to face Yujito. His black eyes were stained with a scarlet color, and a murderous smile curled at the corners of his mouth. Is this the Two Tails ability? It seems it still hasn't escaped the shortcomings of fire release. As expected, even with such a gifted origin, the intelligence of a beast is still limited to the level of a beast. Tailed beasts are perhaps the most unique existence among all life forms in the ninja world. They are physical entities composed of pure chakra, possessing not only intelligence and life but also the ability to be immortal. Even if they die, they will eventually condense and be reborn somewhere in the ninja world after a period of time. And for Uchiha Mo, this life form was of immense value. The Six Paths Sage relied on the yin-yang release, creation of all things to split the Ten Tails chakra and create the 9-tailed beasts, each possessing its own unique ability. Among them, the Two Tails Matatabi's ability was its ghostly blue flames. There was no analysis of this ability, which resembled a bloodline limit, in the original work. However, based on this, coupled with the unique nature of tailed beasts, if tailed beasts could provide proficiency, then the Two Tails was definitely one of the best choices for increasing fire release proficiency. Furthermore, according to the lore, the tailed beast ball ability is a high-density black chakra sphere formed by the tailed beast compressing its internal yin-yang release chakra at a ratio of 2:8 while rotating it at high speed in the air. Therefore, the more powerful the tailed beast, the more powerful the yin-yang release properties it possesses within its body. Yujito's mouth turned down, and she opened her mouth to speak, but when she saw Uchiha Mo's face, she suddenly felt an inexplicable palpitation, and a sharp pain instantly shot through her abdomen. She frowned fiercely, quite puzzled. What's going on? Why has the Two Tails suddenly started rampaging? Damn it. Why now of all times? Yujito became the Two-Tails Jinchuriki when she was only 2 years old. Now, after nearly 10 years of training, although she had not yet reached the state of being nearly a perfect Jinchuriki as seen when she appeared in the original work, she was already able to actively draw on the tailed beast chakra for combat, similar to Naruto's chakra cloak form. That was why Kumogakure felt safe in trusting the revenge against Uchiha Imo to her. However, what she never expected was that the two tails would become restless at this moment. Although she could handle it quickly, this was in the middle of a battle. Uchiha Imo certainly wouldn't let this opening go. His figure instantly vanished from where he stood, and when he reappeared, he was already behind Yujito. Whoosh! The crimson blade, carrying a wave of heat, sliced through the air and instantly reached the snow-white skin on the side of Yujito's neck. Yujito's heart skipped a beat, and her expression was filled with horror. The intense heat and overwhelming killing intent suddenly engulfed her like a tide, making it difficult for her to breathe. She could even feel her hair curling from the high temperature. Unable to care about adjusting her internal state, Yujito hurriedly ducked her head. Pfft! Blood splashed, and a piece of flesh along with her golden hair flew out. Having no time to think, Yujito instinctively stayed low to the ground, then pushed off with her hands, nimbly flipping away to put distance between herself and Uchiha Imo. A severe burning pain came from the flesh that had been sliced open on the back of her head. Yujito could even smell the scent of burning meat, and she could imagine the charred, mangled flesh on the back of her head. Imo looked at Yujito in the distance with some surprise. Should I say you're worthy of being a cat? Your movements are actually this agile. However, just playing hide-and-seek won't be enough for you to survive against me. The three tomo rotated. Imo tapped his toes, gripped the Futsunomitama in reverse, and charged towards Yujito again. Yujito hurriedly took the opportunity to suppress the restlessness inside her, then crossed her hands in front of her chest, quickly mobilizing the chakra in her body. Cat claws. Shing! 10 sharp blades sprang from Yujito's fingertips in response, but by this time, Imo had already arrived in front of her. He took a deep breath. At the same time, he stopped his body with his left foot, slid his right foot in an arc on the ground, and smoothly twisted his wrist, switching the long sword to a standard grip and sheathing it. With his left hand gripping the scabbard and his right hand loosely holding the hilt, he slowly lowered his body in front of Yujito, his cold gaze fixed on her. Crimson blaze, severing red wave. As the words fell, a blazing and powerful burst of chakra erupted instantly, and Yujito's brain frantically sent out warnings. I'll die. She immediately abandoned her original plan, retracted her attacking cat claws, and instead blocked in front of herself. At the same time, ghostly blue flames rapidly began to spread across her body. Whoosh! In an instant, the blade in its blood blade form was unsheathed, and the blood flames exploded in a ring shape, forming a massive disc of fire that, accompanied by intense burning, crazily cut and rotated outwards in all directions. Reference image. The cat claws shattered the moment they made contact, and along with the flying claws, a severed arm flew out. The severing wave did not lose its momentum, violently cutting into Yujito's abdomen and splashing a burst of ghostly blue flames. Arg! Cough! Yujito coughed up a mouthful of blood, and her body was sent flying like a torn sack. Chapter 65, Kill. Cough. Cough, cough. Yujito struggled to stand up, supporting herself with one hand on the ground, blood continuously gushing from the corner of her mouth. She looked down at the severed stump of her right arm and the terrifying wound on her abdomen, where her internal organs were faintly visible. If she hadn't abandoned her attack at the last moment to defend with all her might, using the tailed beast cloak of the two tails to reduce the damage from the fire release, she would likely have been sliced in two. Uchiha Mo's move had caused such a massive commotion that many nearby Kumogakure ninja were caught in the aftermath and killed instantly. The AB duo on the front lines also noticed the change in the battle situation and were anxious, but Minato and the others were sticking to them too closely. Step. Uchiha Mo flicked the blood off his blade, his calm gaze falling on Niyujito as he slowly approached, his long sword pointing diagonally toward the ground. As the footsteps grew closer, Niyujito felt a chill in her heart. Kumogakure was wrong, and they were horribly wrong. They had miscalculated Uchiha Mo's strength. This guy was at least not any weaker than either one of the AB duo. She felt a cool sensation at the back of her head, the slight breeze seemingly blowing directly into her cerebral cortex. The stump of her severed arm had been scorched black by flames and had stopped bleeding, while the long cut on her abdomen had been forcibly sealed by Niyujito using tailed beast chakra. Otherwise, her intestines would likely have fallen right out of the wound. Gritting her teeth, Niyujito mobilized the chakra within her body once more, and a crimson-tailed beast cloak began to spread across her skin. Even so, I must not let down my comrade's expectations. Since she couldn't win even with all her might, then she would give 12 times the effort. If her hand was severed, she would kick. If her legs were broken, she would bite. If her teeth were smashed, she would headbutt. In any case, she absolutely could not give up. She absolutely could not let down her comrade's expectations. Soon, the crimson-tailed beast cloak covered Niyujito's entire body, and her partial-tailed beast transformation was completed in an instant. Perhaps due to her strong will, or perhaps because the two tails had undergone some change, her partial-tailed beast transformation this time was smoother than usual, and the power she unleashed was even greater. Niyujito's partial-tailed beast transformation. Wrapped in dense, tangible chakra, Niyujito's injuries were quickly suppressed, and she felt an unusually powerful strength within her that she didn't understand, filling her with excitement. This power. I can win. Bristling up, are we? Uchiha Mo tilted his head slightly, his expression unchanged as he looked at the monster twice his height in front of him, but the scorching red heat on the Futsunomitama was instantly replaced by azure electric light. The two tails chakra had a very high resistance to fire release damage, especially after a partial or full-tailed beast transformation, so using lightning release against it was the best choice. Swish! Niyujito vanished from her spot in an instant, taking the initiative to attack. Almost the same second Niyujito disappeared, a sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from his side. Uchiha Mo didn't even look, quickly turning and raising the Futsunomitama. Clang! Blinding sparks flew, and a shockwave erupted beneath them. A massive force traveled from the hilt of the blade, pressing Uchiha Mo's feet into the ground, but even so, he remained completely unmoved. It was the ground, not Uchiha Mo himself, that couldn't withstand the force. The power granted by his supernatural strength was not enough to give him an overwhelming advantage in high-level battles, but it was enough to ensure the enemy couldn't gain the upper hand in that regard either. Roar! The red cat-shaped monster let out a hiss. This guy's physical strength is actually this powerful? He can even block the cat claws of a partial-tailed beast transformation, and his speed can keep up completely. What a pain! Crack! With an abrupt, crisp sound, Niyujito immediately shifted her gaze and was instantly shocked to discover that her sharp claws had actually been cut into by that blade. Huh! She turned her head, letting out a low hiss like a kitten in danger, then raised her other front claw, pressing the entire weight of her body onto Uchiha Mo's blade, causing his body to sink a few more inches. Immediately after, Niyujito stared at Uchiha Mo beneath her and suddenly swiped her other front claw toward his waist and abdomen. The sharp cat claws sliced through the air, leaving white air currents and making a hissing sound, as if the space itself were being shredded. At the same time, Niyujito let out a low hiss from her throat. Your strength is indeed great, but it's a pity a cat doesn't only have one claw. Die with your repentance for Kumogakure. Humph. Uchiha Mo sneered and suddenly raised his other hand. No matter how much a kitten bears its fangs and claws, in the eyes of its master, it's nothing more than acting spoiled. Chirp. The Chidori chirped, a long and sharp azure lightning spear suddenly shot out from Uchiha Mo's raised left hand. Puchi. With the help of its own power and the force of Niyujito's swipe, the lightning spear instantly pierced through the entire cat claw, and Niyujito's attack came to a sudden halt. The lightning quickly spread from the wound, and in an instant, she felt a strong sense of paralysis spread throughout her entire body, causing her whole frame to gradually become weak. Niyujito looked at the slightly mocking Uchiha beneath her and flew into a rage. Taking advantage of the fact that the weakness hadn't fully taken hold, she gritted her teeth, ignoring the sharp pain from her left claw and the lightning spear stuck in it. Damn it! Don't underestimate my resolve. Immediately after. Pucci. Crimson blood mixed with chakra splattered everywhere. Niyujito forced herself to exert strength and completed the strike. Her entire left forearm was instantly torn in two. Although it was only the tailed beast cloak, Niyujito felt that pain vividly and almost fainted on the spot. But fortunately, the result of paying such a painful price was that her attack successfully landed. With a muffled bang, Uchiha was instantly sent flying. Awesome! I did it! Niyujito exclaimed in delight upon seeing this. However, before she could be happy for too long, Uchiha slowly rolled his eyes in midair, then flipped and landed steadily on the ground, his feet plowing a trench into the earth, but he successfully stopped his momentum. Uchiha glanced at his shredded top, reached out with his right arm to grab the shoulder, and ripped it off with a sudden forceful tug, instantly tearing the entire top away to reveal his fair, jade-like, unblemished, and toned physique underneath. Reference image, P.S., provided by reader Loser Oo Dust Eater. Ho, how is that possible? Niyujito's body stiffened upon seeing this, her voice tinged with extreme helplessness. My cat claws can easily slice through steel, how could an Uchiha possibly have a physique with this level of strength? Uchiha lifted his straight blade and cracked his neck. Since you've managed to do this much, I'll give you a little praise. In all these years, you're the first one to actually land an attack on me. It's just a pity that while the speed was sufficient, the force was lacking a bit. Of course, if you meant it as a back scratch, it was passable. As he finished speaking, the corners of Uchiha's mouth curled up slightly. He flipped his wrist to grip the straight blade in reverse. The azure electric light on the blade was rapidly stained with a blood-red hue. In no time, the originally blue electric light transformed into lightning with a blood-colored, flame-like halo, crackling arcs of electricity occasionally flashing across the blade. Under layers of invisible shockwaves, the long braid behind Uchiha's head fluttered slightly, and an extremely dangerous and powerful chakra aura instantly spread across the battlefield. Niyujito watched this scene in a daze, clearly still unable to recover from the fact that her attack, which she had exhausted all her means and resolved to execute, had only served as a massage for someone else. But Uchiha naturally wouldn't wait for his enemy to recover. He raised the arm holding the straight blade, his eyes narrowing slightly as they fixed on the monster-sized cat in the distance. Fire release, Crimson Blaze Vermilion Fong. Chapter 66, Matatabi, I Refuse. At the critical moment, A, who had been keeping a constant eye on this battlefield, forced Minato Namikaze back with Killer Bee's cooperation, and immediately roared at Niyujito. Quick, use the full-tailed beast transformation. Worst case scenario, after the battle ends, B and I will help you recover your senses. Full-tailed beast transformation. That's right. I still have this trump card. As these words reached her ears, Yujito's mind jolted, and she wore a look of realization that bordered on madness. This time, facing the blade that was closing in on her neck like lightning, Yujito did not put up any further resistance, but instead sank her consciousness deep down. Two tails. I'm letting you out. As soon as Yujito's consciousness entered the ceiling space, she consciously released the suppression and said this impatiently. However, to her surprise, the giant cat covered in burning, ghostly blue flames did not show the slightest excitement upon hearing these words. Instead, it just lay lazily on the ground, not even sparing her a glance. No. Huh. Why? Upon hearing this, Yujito's body stiffened slightly. She was stunned for a moment, then frowned, her head tilting to the side unconsciously, her face full of confusion. However, Matatabi remained lying on the ground, motionless, and completely ignored her, with only its two tails, which looked like ghostly blue flames, swaying gently. The atmosphere in the space fell silent for a moment. Seeing this, Yujito stood there, brewing for a long time before continuing. Two Tails, I know you are very dissatisfied with us, but now is not the time to be stubborn. Although Kumogakure does indeed want to use you, this is also an opportunity for you, right? Sandaime is not here now, so you have a high chance of escaping. Opportunities like this are rare. She gradually calmed down and began to coax it step by step. Whether for the interests of the village or the expectations of her companions, Yujito absolutely could not give up this opportunity. Moreover, the flow of time in the consciousness space was much slower than outside. If she went out, she would be facing a certain death situation. As her words fell, Matatabi rolled its eyes and glanced at her. Just when Yujito thought Matatabi had been moved, it coldly spat out 3 words. I refuse. Yujito's body trembled, her brow furrowed even tighter. Her face twisted slightly, and she roared in great confusion. Why? You can use my 5 senses to observe that Uchiha, right? Only if you attack and kill him can we continue to live. I can let you out, you can do whatever you want. Don't you want to live? If I die, you will also die, right? Yujito's confused roar echoed in the ceiling space, while Matatabi looked at her coldly. It wasn't until the voice ceased and the surroundings became quiet again that it slowly stood up, pushed its head in front of Yujito, and said coldly. Kill him? Humph. Matatabi sneered and continued. Ignorant and shallow, you don't understand anything at all. You have no idea what kind of existence that person is. Let me go out and face him? I would rather die here with you. At least after a few years, I will be able to resurrect, and I will still be able to escape the seal. You. Yujito was suddenly speechless. She hadn't expected Matatabi to be so resolute, preferring to die here with her rather than take the chance to fight for freedom. Of course, Yujito could also choose to break the seal and forcibly release Matatabi, but the leakage of tailed beast chakra also takes time. The more massive the chakra, the longer it takes, especially when the tailed beast itself is unwilling. The speed and efficiency would be completely incomparable to their cooperation, and in this situation it would simply be too late. What exactly is it for? As Yujito spoke, her whole body went limp and she collapsed. She sat on the ground, her voice filled with a deep sense of powerlessness. She had clearly made up her mind to die directly under the tailed beast's rampage, but Matatabi, who had previously been extremely eager for freedom, had no intention of going out at all. Even it, usually very polite, was now unnaturally cold. This complex feeling was even more powerless than despair. Matatabi looked at Yujito, whose face was ashen, its cold eyes softening slightly. It wanted to say something, but the image of that young man suddenly appeared in its mind. After a moment of silence, it sighed, lay down, and slowly said in its cold, female voice. Yujito, we have spent nearly 10 years together. You are indeed the best Jinchuriki I have ever met, and your personality is very compatible with mine. But in the end, we are just in a relationship of Jinchuriki and tailed beast. That person is a special existence. Go out, I cannot help you, and even if I were willing to help you, it would likely be of no use. Finally. Farewell. Yujito. Puchi. A flash of blood-colored lightning passed by, a blonde girl's head flew off accompanied by a splash of blood, and then her entire body began to disintegrate. Swish. Emo let out a long breath, standing behind Yujito's corpse, swinging his blade to shake off the blood. At the same time, his attention shifted rapidly to the illusory panel. Fire release proficiency plus 15.41%. Yang release proficiency plus 13.7%. In release proficiency plus 11.32%. Unlocked new abilities, Endless Vitality, Heaven's Gaze. Emo could clearly perceive the chakra in his body rapidly becoming more powerful. At the same time, his ocular power soared, and a faint feeling of throbbing came from his eyes. Then, under the feedback of the ocular power, the quality of his chakra was improved once again. His body also changed instantly, his stature grew slightly taller, and his muscles became fuller and firmer. Mo could even feel the surge of what could be called a vast life force within him. But even so, he did not show any expression of joy, but instead frowned tightly. That's not right, this is a tailed beast. A tailed beast plus Niyujito herself, the proficiency provided by 2 lives could not possibly be this little. Except for fire release, which might have suffered further attenuation because the proficiency broke through the 50 threshold, the proficiency growth of yang release and yin release should not have been just this number, even if they had entered the first layer of attenuation at 20%. And now this data looks like, if it was provided by Yujito, it would be a bit too much, and if it was provided by Matatabi, it would be a bit too little. Is it because Matatabi was not killed by my own hands, but died only because it was implicated by the Jinchuriki? Mo looked at the surrounding Kumogakure ninjas who were cowering, swallowing their saliva with fearful expressions, and slightly raised the Futsunomatama in his hand. But if that were the reason, I shouldn't have been able to get any proficiency at all. It's not like there haven't been situations before where others died indirectly because of my slaughter. Seeing Mo's expression, those Kumogakure ninjas all trembled in unison, hurriedly retreated several steps, and tightened their grip on their ninja swords, but none dared to step forward. Forget it, I'll know after I kill a tailed beast again in the future. It wasn't until the Kumogakure ninjas began to withdraw their troops that Mo shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Chapter 67, Changes to the Panel, Summary. After this battle, the name Blood Ninja had resounded across the entire shinobi world. Dodai and the 2 Yujito Jinchuriki had used their blood and lives to forge a towering platform of prestige for Uchiha Mo. A Jinchuriki is a nation's strategic weapon, so any intelligence regarding tailed beasts always spreads with the utmost efficiency, and this time was no exception. Some believed Konoha had produced yet another extraordinary genius, one so young yet capable of slaying a 2-tails Jinchuriki. Others felt that Yujito had been too young to fully harness the tailed beast's power, and dismissed the feat with contempt. When news returned to the village, Uchiha Mo received tremendous praise for his 2 acts of valor on the battlefield, his slaying of the Jinchuriki having directly accelerated their victory. For this, the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, personally promised him a generous reward once the war ended. Upon hearing the news, the Uchiha clan swelled with pride, and Mo's reputation, already far from low, climbed to an entirely new height. Furthermore, pushed along by some unseen force, it was unclear exactly when they had come to firmly believe that Uchiha Mo was now the strongest fighter within the clan. But none of these matters, slowly fermenting as time passed, were of the slightest concern to Uchiha Mo. After returning to camp and excusing himself from the Jonin Council, he made his way without delay to the open clearing that served as his training ground. Mo sat cross-legged on the grass and shifted his attention to that ethereal panel. The once familiar panel had undergone a dramatic transformation. Mo let out a puzzled sound, then began carefully reading through its contents. 1 read, 41.91%. Unlocked abilities, Divine Strength, Endless Vitality. Stage 3, reach 60% and unlock Orange Kid's Stage 3 ability to unlock, No Handle on Heaven, Sage's Power, Fragment. 2 Orange, 50.77%. Unlocked abilities, Clairvoyance, All-Hearing Ears, Sky-Gazing. Stage 4, reach 75% and unlock Red Kid's Stage 3 ability to unlock, Heart That Perceives All, Sage's Eye, Fragment. 3 Yellow, 41.91% plus 28.32%. Unlocked abilities, Blade and Spear Invulnerability. Stage 2, both entries reach 30% to unlock, Vajra Indestructibility. 4 Green, 56.03% plus 55.39%. Unlocked abilities, Fierce Fire, Violent Thunder. Stage 3, both entries reach 50% and unlock Yellow and Orange Kid's Stage 2 abilities to unlock, Heavenly Fire. 5 Cyan, 10.85%. Unlocked abilities, None. Stage 1, reach 20% to unlock, Water Control. 6 blue, 50.77% plus 25.87%. Unlocked abilities, invisibility. Stage 2, both entries reach 30% to unlock, tracelessness. 7 purple, 0.21%. Unlocked abilities, none. Stage 1, reach 50% to unlock, universe in the sleeve. Final mission, raise the safety and stability of this world above 90%, reshaping it into a world suitable for human habitation. Reward, merge the 7-colored lotus, obtain immortality and the ability to traverse between worlds. Current world stability, 15.27%. With release, fire release, and lightning release all breaking past 50%, the panel had transformed from its formerly rudimentary appearance into something far more refined and concise, far clearer at a glance. Not only that, but the 2 new abilities that had appeared as successors to Endless Vitality and Skygazing drew Mo's particular attention. No Handle on Heaven, Sage's Power, Fragment. Heart that Perceives All, Sage's Eye, Fragment. Unlike the other text, these words were rendered entirely in purple, appearing markedly superior, and distinctly different from the locked abilities the panel had previously shown. Mo's attention immediately fixed on the parenthetical text, his brow furrowing in puzzlement. On the surface, these looked like secondary attributes, and the deliberately appended fragment was easy enough to understand. But Sage's power? Was this referring to the power of Senjutsu? Or the power of the Sage of Six Paths? If it were the Sage of Six Paths, it should encompass the Sage's Eye and the Sage's body, so why would the Sage's Eye still appear separately afterward? And if it were Senjutsu, then this ability should logically be provided by the 4th or 5th kid instead. After a moment's deliberation, Uchiha Mo reached a conclusion, abandon the line of thinking for now. Based on his own experience, the panel adapted the abilities it granted to align to some degree with the power framework of the shinobi world. Nearly every ability he'd used to this day had never truly departed from the chakra system at its core. No matter how unfathomable they appeared, the underlying essence driving such power was still chakra. Yet he would not simply assume that this so-called Sage's power and Sage's Eye were what his conventional understanding suggested, for at their very foundation, the hierarchy of his panel's abilities already transcended conventional ninjutsu. The so-called power of the 6 paths was, at its core, simply the power wielded by the Sage of Six Paths himself. The outward manifestations might bear surface resemblance to what he knew, but the origin would be entirely different. The basis for this reasoning was simple: the panel had never once directly granted any power that inherently belonged to the shinobi world's own system. Having thought it through, Mo shifted his gaze to the 2 newly appeared abilities, No Handle on Heaven and Heart that Perceives All. Hate the sky for having no handle, hate the earth for having no ring. This is likely the final power type ability stage for the Red Kid, and aside from the Yang release proficiency requirement, it's bound to Yin release, which I've already cleared ahead of time. And Heart that Perceives All. Mo murmured to himself, brow furrowing deeper. From the literal meaning alone, he could only discern that it was another perception type ability. Anything further remained unclear. Forget it, dwelling on this serves no purpose. Shaking his head, Mo moved his gaze down the panel until it rested at the very bottom, where a new line of blood-red text had clearly appeared. Current world stability, 15.27%. Mo was certain this line had not been there before the panel changed, it had emerged alongside the transformation itself. It seems that as my strength grows, by the panel's own standards I now possess the capability to meaningfully influence this world, which is why this value has appeared. 15.27%. He had no baseline for comparison, but Mo felt this figure was anything but normal. After all, that blood-red coloring already said something. After a brief look, he gave it no further thought. The final mission was still some distance away. His immediate priority remained advancing his strength as quickly as possible. Though proficiency growth had begun suffering from more severe double-layer decay once it crossed 50%, it hadn't yet hit a hard ceiling, and there were still plenty of powerful individuals left in the shinobi world. Once the day came when every power on the panel had been unlocked, he would naturally possess the ability to reshape this world however he pleased. Next objectives. Mo's gaze swept across the panel and quickly locked onto two targets, Wind Release and Earth Release. Wind Release was only one step away from unlocking the Blue Kid's Stage 2 ability, Tracelessness, and Earth Release was similarly close. Moreover, once Earth Release hit the threshold and unlocked Vajra Indestructibility, the long-since eligible Heavenly Fire would unlock simultaneously. However, while his objectives were clear, Iwagakure and Sunagakure had yet to make their move, and the war between Kumogakure and Konoha had already been pushed to a fever pitch. After he slew their Jinchuriki, it was foreseeable that Kumo would either stand down entirely, or go completely berserk. Knowing these Kumo shinobi as well as he did, Imo was fairly certain they'd choose the latter. So naturally, he had no intention of abandoning this front anytime soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.